It's just a long lost look in your eyes, brings out a love that I can't disguise. So take me down to the places I've never seen. Oh, don't you try to kill me with kind. It's just your love that's driving me wild. Oh, from the dawn we rise, with the heart we cry, to the light we go, into the light we go. From the darkest night, from the fire inside, into the light we go, into the light we go, to the light we go.
We're back here, guys. It was the end of a very long game. Number 2 went to over 50 minutes, but it was not a fun one for our SKT jungler, Blossom.
It certainly wasn't. Umti had the Kha'Zix finally, and SKT said, let's show some respect. We'll take the Jax. We don't want to take Zac and have our tank jungler shut down. The Jax, unfortunately, was the double-edged sword that Blossom will represent for SKT in every series he plays this season before he really has enough time to fully get acclimatized to professional play. This was the bad side of the coin if you're an SKT fan. So often the first person going down in a fight. And Jin Air eventually had a 6.5 item Teddy with extra items galore. And they trained down Jin Air GreenWings, so they trained down SK Telecom T1 and forced a game 3. So both series between SKT and Jin Air go to the maximum.
Well, there were a couple of times where MT looked like he was getting into trouble, but he kept his cool. Really, the only time where it looked not so great was where he got caught by Faker that one time. But SKT, you could tell they were really trying to make things happen, especially here after the Baron was taken. They go for the turret dive and lose 2. Get 1 on the backside, but in the end, this was what ended it. The Xayah just way too strong. They're diving so desperately for kills.
Watch how many autos it takes to kill people. There's 2 autos to Blade Caller dead, 3 autos dead. He is unbelievably fed. Finally, with Auron and a Rakan, he gets the Molten Edge and a 50% damage amp. Teddy needs as much time as possible. When he gets going, he gets going. Massive amount of damage dealt by the Xayah this game, and felt like the Zoe damage not as oppressive as some past Zoe performances.
Well, Jack's lowest damage lull in the game does make sense. I mean, when you die, I think it was 8 times, as you do for Blossom, you're not going to have high damage numbers, so that's just the way it goes. Surprising to see Zoe so high up there, close to the Xayah, but either way, Jin Air going to make it an interesting one. 50 minutes. The first game was almost 40, second one 50. Do we overcome 60 minutes? In the last game, it's going to be Wraith as the MVP here for game 2.
Wraith with the playmaking Rakan. A lot of Rakan MVPs in recent memory. Tucson picking up one for the Afrika Freaks as well. Able to make the plays. And Xayah Rakan the first time, the second time, didn't work out for Teddy and Wraith. We said this is a duo that plays like Xayah Rakan plays into their hands, but hasn't actually been working on the Rift. It does in this game, and some great playmaking by him.
So you can see deep in thought, he still has that really cool watch on that I mentioned before game 1.
You're obsessed, man.
I don't know how you play with a watch, by the way. I've tried it before. It's really hard to do. It's kind of distracting, but I guess if you're used to the weight on your arm, then you got to do what you got to do.
I just love that Jin Air sells teddy bears.
Yeah.
Probably not for the reason of League of Legends branding, but amazing branding for that League of Legends team nonetheless.
Wolf. It's getting hot in here. As I mentioned, it's getting warmer here in Seoul. Spring is definitely coming, and with the rain and the humidity here in Seoul, definitely sweating after game 2.
It's getting hot in the standings too. If they lose, they're 2 matches behind KSV.
Not feeling good. So guys, we're gonna jump into pick and bans for game number 3.
So far, the bans have not been rewritten, but only one on the Rift so far from the Skarner. With Skarner, GP, and Gnar on the blue side in game 1. But the Gnar can be left open. Gnar value in recent memory has not been super high. We do see early Galio ban here. SKT have shown they are most happy to first pick Galio on the blue side, as they did series against Afrika, and then left it up to be first picked by Afrika. GP ban on blue side as well. So far, the same bans from SKT.
Well, we saw Teddy on the Xayah and the Xayah Rakan combination. Do you try to ban something out here by banning one of them, or do you just go for the Gnar ban once again?
The problem is that if Kallista's left open, then you just end up with Kallista Rakan on the red side. So the choice here by SKT is to ban the Kallista. So Varus versus Xayah Rakan looking very likely. Do they have a higher priority champion to ban? Thinking about something like a Zoe. Now they're saying Zoe first pick because the Rise has been taken off the board. In exchange for Xayah Rakan is our expected read on the draft. SKT can also just take the Xayah, and we have not seen the performance on the Zoe yet by Justice. But SKT, they don't seem to be in the mood for the Lovers bot lane, even though Bang & Wolf, some of our elder statesmen, will take the Zoe as it's left available.
Yeah, it could just be a mind game hover with the Varus saying, okay, we might be thinking about this. It does mean that the Ezreal would make its way through because Bang, you know, it's one of his best champions and it wasn't banned here. Hovering the Bard, maybe Jin Air doing a little bit of funky stuff themselves.
They will not first round Bard. That'd be insane. They're going to take Xayah Rakan, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
Taking a while on the hover. They don't have to take Rakan at this pick because you're not expecting a non-Kallista Rakan lane. So we're probably going to be able to have a bit of flexibility if they want it. They can also just continue to respond. Very excited to see what their mid lane choice is. Talia is, of course, the obvious one. Have not seen Justice on Talia yet, but it is a staple of a mid lane champion pool. They'll just take the Rakan, so they don't feel rushed. Seems like they're committing to mid lane and bot lane in the first round. While some hovering his comfort, he is the Kha'Zix Rengar guy.
After game 2, maybe you set him on comfort because he certainly did not look comfortable on the Jax after going down 2-3 times early on in the game. Picking the Rengar that early, though, would be kind of interesting, so they switch it over to the Leona again. Yeah,
they like the Leona very early, but this has been increasingly a matchup against Xayah Rakan, so they're rolling it back here, happy with the Varus-Leona matchup. Mid lane expected. We mentioned already one choice. You can also go into the Malzahar and play through mid lane. Not as hype as the Talia for many people, but a staple mid lane matchup. I think if I'm SKT, I start banning away Kha'Zix and invading junglers, and you just take a tank matchup. You want the Zac if you're SKT at this point, I would say. Go for something with strong initiation.
Yeah. Sejuani's still left available, by the way. Did not get banned here by either team. But, of course, some jungle bans are going to come on through here. Jin Air going for the Jarvan ban.
I feel like Sejuani is higher ticket for SKT than it is for Jin Air. this season has not found success on the pick. He's 1-6 on the Sejuani. Wants to just be jumping on a Kha'Zix and messing some fools up. That's the way he plays League of Legends. Blossom also, but differing responsibilities, differing drafts. Kha'Zix would make sense for deleting mid laners because you can just ult into the Kha'Zix isolation damage many times. A lot of time spent on junglers, and SKT fans will be happy that they see a Jax ban.
I just started laughing the second I saw that. I'm like, really? You banned the Jax right after he just went 0-8 on it? Interesting choice, but perhaps they think it's just a fluke, just a one-time thing.
And maybe they're happy to have Kha'Zix versus Zac. Maybe they're happy to have a farming jungler against an invading jungler. So this would cement that. Trundle the final ban. So one showing that he likes to play last pick, top lane picks like Illaoi and Trundle on red side. Largely a denial pick. It fits with the comp, but does stifle a little bit. Seems like is going to be much more of a role player in this particular game. They will still last pick for Sowan. And I think Sion on blue side would represent the safest lane possible for SKT. They will be worried about an Alawi, but the Alawi performance wasn't fantastic from So1, and that was in the Orin matchup. I feel like Sion even does better in the Alawi matchup than the Orin can. So they will take the Sion, as you would expect. Lots of lane power here by SKT. I don't pick his jungle. What will Blossom be assigned? Will he be unleashed or will he be shackled? The ZAC made a lot of sense in game 1. They looked past it. It will be defaulted to in game 3 unless we see a last-second change. And I love seeing Koma in the back. He's giving him a pat in the back. He's saying this is the right pick for the comp, even if it is not the comfort for SKT. And they have won with Blossom on ZAC before. Really like that little show of support. I'm sure the young jungler needs it.
Yeah, just patting his shoulder as much as possible. Little massage as well. Just whatever you need to calm him down after game 2. I'm sure he'll be ready to go. Thinking about an Ornn here.
Oh, yes. The hyped top lane matchup.
Nice.
Sion versus Ornn. Who gets the banner of command earliest is the funnest lane to cast of all time. I'm even saying funnest. Great English right there. But Jin Air GreenWings.
Who invented that language anyway, Papa? No one knows.
You know what this game has invented? Team fights. There's team fights everywhere. Everyone is desperate to team fight on both sides. SKT a little bit better around the siege. The team fight comps here. This is a game of vision. You get deep Tracker's Knife wards in and make the ZAC accountable, you're fine. If the SKT starts to roll, though, a snowball on the side of SKT with a Fed Zoe and a ZAC able to come out of vision, then I think SKT wins. They have so many options on the engage. Top lane, it's going to be a slugfest, but not an exciting one. But team fights abound means hopefully some hype times on the Rift.
Should be a fun one. It's going to be a great conclusion to this best-of-3 series. SKT versus Jin Air definitely delivering every time they make it onto the Rift. And seeing the comps this time around, I feel like we'll get some more of the same. And we'll see if Teddy can make it 2-0 on the Saya tonight.
SKT will probably have to team fight unless they can recreate the 23-minute passage. This one game one that allowed them to circumvent all the scaling that Jin Air was trying to do. It's power on both sides. Only the ZAC has a pretty significantly early weak phase. Everyone else here is very decently powerful. Mid laners are going to need some levels, but this should be a hype one. Top lane is going to be about the TPs. Bot lane is going to be about the scaling. It's an Ornn item, and it's also Gathering Storm and the extra oomph of the Zeke's convergence. Teddy, if it goes long enough, prime to hard carry.
Everybody gather around the teddy bear and hope and pray that you can win. It might be the one way that they can take the series off of SKT. Let's jump into game number 3 right now. Certainly a much more high-pitched cheer from the crowd whenever Jin Air comes into the stadium. They brought their fans with them.
We've also had a very predominantly female fan base for a long time. Kuzan had a lot of fans when he was on Jin Air. He was kind of the leader of the band that captured all the imagination. Now it's largely going to be Wraith on their side, praised for his good-looking appearance by the Korean fans and casters and basically everyone. I love telling everyone about how good-looking Wraith is. But
certainly one of the things that gets commented about, but hopefully we can just focus on his play rather than his looks, especially after game 2.
That's what they MVP also said in the interview last time out. So we'll see if the play level is at the level here, because I feel like SKT will probably think, okay, if we just rolled back game 1 and Blossom wasn't giving up kills, maybe would have been able to win in a straight normal situation. Fake Leash is actually enacted by Bang and Wolf on the bot side. They wanted to take the damage and expend the mana to try to disrupt Umti's pathing. Usually we don't see that big a commitment, but they purposefully took damage and tried to protect the 2-buff take on the top side. Unbeknownst to them, it was a bot side start. It's going to be cemented when we see Umti walk over vision. It's very common to see red side, red buff into contesting the 2 camps by the ZAC, but this is a 2-part plan to allow Blossom to leash both his blue buff and his Gromp and get the fast level 3.
Certainly a pretty common route here for our ZAC. Let's see where he heads afterwards, though. Will he
It is unlikely for Jin Air to respect this stock because of the lengths that the fake leash went to. So should be mentioned that you do not expect to see Zach topside if you're Orin. Puts down a ward, he sees him, but I really do like the amount of investment they put into shielding Blossom. Players are always off SNS between games, of course, but it's one of those situations where you need to get as much confidence in the young jungler as you can.
So this is the lane we don't really want to look at. Certainly early game, we've seen that Orin especially has some opportunities to make something happen. But corrupting pot here on the side of Untara. He's going to be playing it safe, just making sure he doesn't take too much damage.
I have one hype thing to find out about in the top lane, which is which spell does Untara max first? My instinct is going to be Roar of the Slayers, even without Comet. There is the ability to interrupt the Decimating Smash full charge with a Q. The pop-up does actually cancel the Decimating Smash. We'll find out very soon, though, I'm sure, on what Untara is maxing. But apart from that, you're right. It's all about watching the other lanes and waiting for the teleport play to happen. It is still patch 8.3 if you're joining us late, so maybe a little bit less of an emphasis on Banner of Command, but probably still at least one banner in the top side.
I'm just waiting for 8.4. That's going to be the Legend of Banner of Command with lots of Trundle, lots of Cho'Gath to try to fight against that.
Minion dematerializes all over the Rift.
Yeah. It's an interesting way to deal with it. Certainly when you buff one thing, it's so hard to balance this game, which is why, you know, some people balance wine from time to time. I'm like, well, there are so many champions and items and objectives and different compositions, and there's just too many variables to get it right every time. So, well, we're going to have a bit of a fight here as actually Soan is going in. Kind of cutting my balance speech short. But,
I mean, in terms of your speech,
it's hard to balance.
I feel like Riot was aware of what was happening. They talked about the fact that they were bug fixing the banner for the first time in a long time. There was PB videos. I think the reason why they didn't go for a super early hotfix was to see how it played out. Now, even if you're watching the EULCS and other regions, it has evolved in just 2 match days. We get 5 match days a week here. I'm excited to see the evolution as teams hit their 3rd best of 3 on a patch where very clearly Banner of Command minions are pretty damn overpowered compared to expectation. The Baron is also buffed. There's always a risk that you could turn into just a full Fiesta, leaving it open, but they're rolling the dice just like Jin Air is on the bot side.
Yeah, MT looking for a play. They're going to get the knock-up on a bang as well as that ignite. They spell it, but he actually flashes out of here. It's not going to be enough damage to pick up the kill onto Bang.
He didn't really have a good option there. He had to invest his flash early to catch on to Bang, and he probably wouldn't have been able to pick up a kill as the follow threat of Teddy and Wraith this early in the game is low. They do get a summoner, so they'll feel good about that, but otherwise, Jin Air back away, knowing that now Zion Rakan will have even more lane control than you'd expect against the Leona.
Yeah. I wasn't really looking at that portion of the play, but I think it was Wolf that really just caught them up and didn't allow Zion Rakan to really follow on in, so nice play from the bottom lane. Blossom going aggressive again. He's regained his confidence, not scared to go in there.
Got full vision this time, so more controlled aggression. Sort of play that won't be as possible on patch 8.4. Soan is bossing around the Scion with the early trades. Unnerved Bellows Breath is still pretty good when it comes to tank-on-tank trades. By unnerved, it still does have the removal of the CC immunity on patch 8.3, but not the extra max health damage, so a bit more oomph than before. It's been a fun word to say today, oomph. We've had a lot of triumphant plays that have led to a lot of
triumphant plays, Papa.
You should. Valdez, you calm down.
You went right into it. I couldn't help it. You know?
Yeah, but it was bad. It was really bad.
It was okay.
It wasn't Jin Air versus SKT levels.
Yeah,
which is pretty hype right now.
Certainly, the Xayah damage has been putting some oomph into these games.
Not yet. Still very much a piece in game number 3. Scaling, scaling, scaling. 1 item power spike going to be much more severe for Bang than it is for Teddy. Essence Reaver I always think of as a building block item that unlocks future potential but doesn't provide much on its own. I feel like the mana sustain is almost forgotten as it comes to passives on that ability. Also on that item. When blue buff spawn, OMT serving it up. We'll see if the level 6s being hit for both jungle and mid laner will spice up the mid lane. But for now, it's a farming phase as Blossom's going for a creative gank path.
Certainly concerned about this. Going to jump onto nobody and misses. So he actually blows his ult too. as I'm laughing through my play-by-play, I can hardly believe that every single thing missed on the gank.
Well, he gets to walk away, the walk of shame, as you go back to your jungle with no ultimate.
Even Bang and Wolf are just sitting there like, really, dude? We can't do anything with that, man.
If you remember his first game on the Rift, we saw those moments where he would gank and just die in mid and bot lane as Bang and Wolf like, I don't know what this guy's up to, but all right.
That was a funny one.
You always want to give your jungle for the benefit of the doubt. You say, okay, yes, something could happen here.
Yeah.
But then everything misses. You waste the ult, and you look a bit sheepish as you walk off. To know what the comms said, they're probably very calm comms. They're probably like, oh, next time.
Yeah. Certainly it would not be calm in solo queue as
no.
A multitude of question mark pings would be launched at you. I'm sure that's not what Riot had in mind when the question mark ping was invented, but...
would you be, if there was a behavior check on your account, do you think you would be all right when it comes to...
Me?
Ways of venting frustration in solo queue?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm going to do question mark pings, it's only like 1 or 2. Okay. I don't do like the 6 pings, you know, or the spam.
Do you feel like 6 is the number where you've just gone too far?
Well, 6 is the max, right? So if people could do more, they would do more. Trust me. Because I've seen people that do 6 and then they wait and they do another 6. And it's not always question mark ping. Sometimes it's just pinging your name, especially after you've died. So it's like respawns in 35 seconds. Like, it's fun times on the Rift.
Riot's probably happy they don't have to arbitrate what like the exchange rate is for amount of question mark pings into level of punishment. Probably just a sign of being a bit too much into your solo queue game rather than necessarily punishable. But I don't speak for the balance team.
Some passionate people on the Korean server. I can attest to that. Yes.
What about the Disco Nunus? Would you say they're passionate?
You know, I haven't really faced too many of those. Those were, you know, when Nunu got buffed and all that, I was expecting to see so much of them, but actually I didn't play with even one Nunu. I know that you played with a couple, but I was like getting hyped for some Nunu play, but then just nobody came in.
Admittedly, I was the Nunu. Not the Disco, but the regular Nunu.
Yeah.
As a side, why is there not a Disco Nunu skin? It would make so much money.
You know?
You wouldn't have to even be on the nose. I just want his ult to be him dancing under a disco ball. It's so obvious. Why is there not?
Yeah.
Disco Nunu, where is it at, Riot?
Well, you certainly have the ability to ask them.
We just did. On their board. This is their channel.
Just did.
This is exactly their channel. So, Riot Games, please, you listen to my ask for there to be a stronger Baron and Elder. We'll see how that goes, but please can I have my Disco Nunu?
Well, certainly as Nunu got a bit stronger, as they put in some heavy buffs, which, by the way, I do like. I like when games put in some heavy buffs instead of nerfing everything.
You sound like someone that hasn't played against Nunu recently.
Yeah, you know what? I have not played a single game against
Exactly.
Nunu.
So that's why easy for you to say as we just ignore the tank trait. Untara's not going to die, guys.
Yeah, I mean, he's got his cloak, he's got his catalyst, he's sitting pretty.
Do notice that Justice will have the big gold generation advantage in this particular game. Recorder, though, is in this particular game, Wraith has to flash. Didn't actually have a Xayah to go to. I just want to mention it's Remnant of the Watchers rushed for Justice, able to get his gold generation quest on. Whereas for the side of Faker, he's gone QSS, so less combat stats for safety. There's definitely going to be a damage lead and also a gold generation lead. And that will eventually start to chip into SKT's gold. Is Blossom still interested in bot lane?
Oh, Teddy, he might have stayed just a little bit too long. The flash comes in, and that's going to be enough. First blood goes over to Wolf on the Leona.
The overstay was real, Valdez. We already saw the return to base coming through for Wraith after he had to use his flash. It was too risky there. Taken out, didn't need to, and the turret will roll down as well.
A fantastic start here for SKT. There wasn't much action in the first 11 minutes, but then one small mistake, nice vision control out of SKT, gets them 1 kill and the turret even in the bot lane.
And I see the replay. Notice that the Wraith, the support Rakan, was in base. Teddy wanted to outplay, but if you notice the CC bar, it never elapses. It's the entire length of the duration of his death. Condemns the turret to go down. Looking to turn it into more. Other side of SKT, and they even pick up the bonus Infernal. Big swing in the game at 12 minutes.
Nicely done. This is what I was talking about in game 1. Generally, when you get a big objective down in the bottom lane and a kill, you try to go for that Rift Herald, but seems a little bit too early, and Untara was noticing it, was going to come down, and sees that MT, in fact, does back off of that Rift Herald.
I mean, Teddy dies with ult, but he would have had to use the ult early and wouldn't have been able to bait more than one spell. Would have still died. So it was really about his positioning there, not just the lack of using his flash or ult. We'll return to lane, push up, but the gold lead this does provide SKT. We're already just a hairs ahead. Allows the Rage Blade to be complete earlier than any items for Teddy. Allows bot lane to be unlocked. Speaking of being unlocked, Leona can now roam the map first. As the Solar Flare available. And now the rest of the laners will have to kind of pay the penance for Teddy's overstay.
Bang backing off in a big way here. Looking just for the Krugs. I thought maybe he was scared about a dive, but as we could see, there was no dive coming.
Vision control for Jin Air largely around bot side, and there's no reason for him to be in lane until the minions push up. So opportunity cost there kind of basically lends itself to staying out of lane until there's a reason to be in lane.
Yeah.
Options you have when you have a turret lead is to duck out, duck in, and raise the question marks for Jin Air.
Certainly like the min-maxing as well, just saying, okay, well, hold that thought. We are going to have a bit of a gank here as the kidnap comes in, but the flash goes out as Just is forced to blow his flash to get out of that one.
Yeah, Blossom finally finding some success on the ultimate, that time successfully gaining a summoner spell. Bot lane, OMT was there for a lane gank as Wraith was out of lane as well, but they have a little bit of deep vision, not enough to truly tell them where OMT was, but they read the play very well there. The SKT's bot lane. SKT on the front foot, feeling confident, extra flash onto Faker.
Looked kind of like an awkward portal jump there, but it gets the job done in terms of landing the Sleepy Trouble bubble.
Second ult to lane we see from Untara. While he is Glacial Augment, do note that he can roar the bannered minion away, which is an option to at least delay the effectiveness of that. We haven't actually noticed whether he was maxing Q first. My apologies, haven't kept my eye on that one. As around the turret.
Certainly was looking for some kind of play, but as UMT was nearby, he does stop the dive here onto the flashless Justice. Oh, but they might go in here onto UMT. At least the smite comes down, and there's that chunk damage we know and love out of Zoe.
Definitely starting to happen. Only Cinderhulk and the start of a Warmogs for UMT, so a lot to worry about. Every time we see those sort of plays, going to just try and invest a couple of members to defend the red buff here, will Jin Air. And they find themselves in a pretty similar spot as game one, where they're looking for the delay. Both teams have a team fight comp, and that ends up making the game more snowball than you would expect. If both teams have a pretty similar identity, a gold lead very often means turrets being down, vision moving forward, and the only counter for Jin Air to a team fight is team fighting better themselves. The gold disadvantage that's so hard to do. So Jin Air will want to reach a couple of important item spikes, and that represents at least one more item onto Teddy.
Banner of Command, you mentioned it in the beginning. Well, it is completed. First onto Sowan. Untara still waiting on that item. Gets the Abyssal Mask first.
It'll take a long time for Untara to push through it. He has gone for Roar the Slayer into the W, so respecting the interrupt coming through from the Oran Q. Does mean doesn't have as much physical damage wave clear, so has to meander around, kind of frustrated at the banner minion. One of the reasons you want to do this extensively against a Scion is that Scion often has the ability to outpush basically any tank laner and then roam first with his ultimate. So even making him more accountable for a couple more seconds, even delaying him, removes the chance in the mid game for Untara to roam first and allows Sowan to often reach a team fight at the same time as a Scion. And from the team fight, he has the ultimate, he has more team fight control. So Banner does get a nice little lead for Sowan.
Blossom down a level here against MT, but he's still just mirroring him in the red buff side, not letting him get away. Keeping complete vision and control in there, even without too many wards. Even thinking about starting up this Rift Herald. They clean out the vision in the pit, but
Honor is already walking up, so
yeah.
Early rotation here from Jin. They don't want to give this up. Now, Their items aren't in a great spot, but they're going to engage anyway.
They're going to go on to Bang. This might just be the death of the AD carry, but he flashes out in time. Chain of Corruption does go wide, but Reef disappears off of the face of the earth as Zoe doing that damage. Faker going to land it, and that's going to be a second kill. Jin Air getting a little bit too frisky with the engages, and now it might be another one, a third kill, a second one going over to Faker as they clean up 3, and they're going to get the Rift Herald.
The aggression that would have worked in Game 2 is out of place for Jin Air in Game 3. We mentioned, wait for your item spikes. Do not get too aggressive. Summoners were still up on the side of SKT. Banker pop over the wall. It didn't matter if the initial CC goes wide from SKT. Watch the replay. Again, remember, the items are not there. Still, Jin Air say, we can fight, we can wombo. Bang gets out, and that's where the team fight turns around, is that there's relative safety for the carries of SKT. There's no safety, as Justice does precisely nothing in this fight, to the fact that the rest of his members had died. There was no front line. They lose their lives unnecessarily to the side of Jin Air, and to the tune of multiple kills for SKT.
It's just been kills plus one more, the bonus stuff here for SKT. They get the kill bottom lane, then they get the turret and the Infernal Drake. And this time, Engage goes wrong. They get 3 kills and a Rift Herald. So, as you mentioned, everything's certainly going right for them. 3,000 gold ahead, and now they're looking for more as Empty, the Arctic Assault, is down here. He does have his flash, but he kind of flashes into the darkness, trying to get away, but it's 4 members against 1. And he certainly is going to be locked down here. Sleepy Trouble Bubble comes out. They can hand this one over to Bang, just adding some more kills to the side of their carries.
Yeah, Opti tried to flash to be able to actually Arctic Assault without being body blocked. In the end, didn't matter, was taken down anyway. Rift Herald just going to be summoned in the bot side to make another headache for the team of Jin Air GreenWings. Banner on both sides. It's a preview of 8.4, guys.
Well, Intara saying, yeah, I can fight fire with this one. Rift Herald always looks kind of awkward if you don't escort it up the lane. But as you mentioned, it's really just trying to draw someone down there, and they can get another objective in the mid lane. If anyone comes in to defend it, perhaps Teddy again, they can always dive. This ZAC definitely working out a lot better for Blossom than the Jax in Game 2.
And would have been a pretty clean pick there. Oh. Speaking of clean picks, Teddy, well, he might not be dead, but he's out of the fight. They just rinse and repeat. Keep doing what you're doing. There's no counterplay against this sort of engaged threatening from SKT.
SKT certainly trying their hardest to make Game 2 look like a fluke. They're saying this is the new SKT. It's not 8.1, 94-minute losing to Jin Air SKT. It's 8.3, new roster, new solidified roster, I should say. And they're looking a lot better this time around.
I think SKT fans are still hyped about the Jax ban against SKT.
Yeah.
Not even leaving the lingering doubt that the Jax would return in this game.
Even Jin Air felt bad for him. They're like, well, we're just not even going to give you the option.
We don't need your charity.
Yeah. Oh, poor guy. Thankfully, he doesn't listen to our broadcast.
I've spoken English to him. It's probably not enough to fully appreciate our ironic cheers, let's say. Waiting for the banners to come off. We might have to name some banner minions this game, but we'll hold off till we actually see them 1v1.
You only name the ones that make a difference, right? You forget the ones that kind of just do their job and then, you know,
look,
live and die.
I'm all for a banner versus banner matchup. It's not like Orin versus Sion isn't really kind of just a banner versus banner minion matchup.
That's basically what they are with more skills.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah. They just sit there and push the wave. I miss the days of Lee Sin top, you know, even Khan on the Jace. Like, we don't really see that all too much.
Oh, come on. We've seen enough Khan Jace this season.
Like, what I'm saying is the standard, the majority of what we've seen is not the most fun. I'd like to bring back carry versus carry.
But the reason why I object to that is I really like seeing Voyboy on the top lane Lee Sin.
Sure.
Some of the other ones not great. Mid lane Lee Sin, Froggen was pretty good. The other ones not great.
Like,
I really like Khan on Jace. Other Jaces, NA Jaces, no thank you. No. It's still a very limited thing where you're right. There isn't always players that have kind of champions they're really pocket picks with. Think of ADD and Sion. Even when ADD picks it, you feel pretty hyped about it, right? It's like, yay, it's ADD. It's his Sion. We could do with more of the pocket picks, but we're still getting Khan's J, so that's happy to see.
We've had our fair share. We had Riven, we had Fiora come in a couple times. Guess can't complain too much. SKT, they're really far ahead for 22 minutes into the game. About 6,000 golds here as they just try to get all the vision in the world around the Baron side. Pretty standard stuff out of them.
And only now did Jin Air realize they need to be ultra defensive around their play. They got too excited previously, put themselves in a bigger hole than they would have wanted at 23 minutes, or thereabouts in the game. They don't control much of the Rift, honestly. Not really much ability for them to stake claim to things other than their own Raptors, and even now SKT's contesting those.
Turbo Bubble is going to go wide, which certainly would have saved some damage on the side of Jin Air. But they have pushed them out quite efficiently, so they're going to go in and clear out some of these control wards that Jin Air has. They only have one more in the inventory currently. That's on right now. So you notice that Justice does go back and pick up 3 extra to help out with that vision. Thinking about a play here, but actually it might be Blossom who gets himself into trouble. Although he is going to kidnap the Sejuani here, and it's way too much CC. Once again, a little bit too frisky in the front. Decides he wants to be kidnapped, and down he goes.
And unfortunately, play on the Sejuani has very often left us much to be thought about, just because he's going to move towards 1 and 7 if they lose this game. They're on pace to do that. He didn't have flash up. He used the flash to try to get over the wall on the bottom side, and that just meant he was kidnapped. You can't Arctic Assault out unless you Arctic Assault very early. It gets interrupted by the Let's Bounce, and that means that he goes down. The Baron is free to SKT, and 23 minutes, a play decided the game when SKT was last on blue side in game 1. 23 minutes, they're going to try and break the base with the first Baron.
So we'll take another look
He
here.
uses the Q aggressively, and it's just free. It's a free kidnap because he doesn't have flash to get out. Great counting of the timings on the ultimate there by SKT. They knew that if they ulted, there was no flash available to but too easy. And second time that has looked for an engage. I imagine the first one was a team call around the Rift Herald. This one also decides to go in with no exit plan. And if we're going to criticize Blossom for it in game 2, we have to say the same thing about in game 3.
Sure. I mean, he's sitting at 0-3, definitely not the best score in the world for a jungler. They've been struggling so far in this series. Let's see what they can do. Now, Baron buff 2 minutes and 30 here as SKT look to push in. Wants to make a play, wants to redeem himself, perhaps, with a good ultimate into the backline. He may just be able to do that, but I think at this point, Bang might even have his QSS. We're looking at Intara, who does ult away, so it is Scion, of course.
Smite onto that particular banner. Cannon minion is 8.3, just to reiterate one final time, so isn't going to be deleting turrets in half a second.
No QSS just yet, but decent amount of magic resist at least. Some good survivability for Bang. As they're pushing in, the siege is nice with all the CC. You got the Zoe. There's going to be the engage. They get up to Bang here, and they have all their CC being used, but he just flashes away. He's way too tanky. They don't have enough damage. Now SKT trying to get into that back line, but Jin Air have sufficiently backed off and survived up until now.
If Jin Air had played that fight out the same way and not given away 4 kills, contesting the Rift Herald, maybe they would have had enough gold to make the engage work. It was great timing. It was great target selection. There's no damage on their side because they donated a 10,000 gold lead to the side of SKT. SKT can shrug that one off. They can try to return onto Bang, but if SKT make that same play, they've got the damage items to actually make Jin Air pay for it.
Good job there from SKT. At least Jin Air was able to get the flash off of Bang. But now with QSS available and even a Zeal added to the items of Bang, it's going to be even that much harder.
Well, look, count the flashes. 1, 2, there was 4 flashes used by Jin Air in this attempt, and they may have got Bangs, but Bang can just be a little bit more defensive and be able to play out these fights just fine. Faker was absolutely stoked at having 4 flashes bonus in this fight to play around, but it did delay. Wasn't able to actually make Jin Air pay super for that one. The next time he probably will.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Wolf blocked the Sejuani ultimate as well. They were looking to chain CC after CC onto Bang because he didn't have that QSS yet. So whether it was on purpose or not, as Wolf was just going, he was diving headfirst into Jin Air, and it just so happened to hit him on his way in. Worked out in helping Bang get the small amount of time he needed to flash out of that one.
And now the desperation starts because the perfect game is on in this game. Valdez.
Blossom just ulted.
He did. We won't talk about that. We will talk about the perfect game still being on for SKT.
Ooh, okay. See if they can do it here. Bang certainly going to be a lot more aggressive now with his QSS available. Doesn't have his flash yet though, so has to play around that for a bit here.
I want to continue making the play. I didn't catch whether Blossom was in vision when he wasted his ultimate. If he is, then you can be a little bit more aggressive if you're Jin Air. The kit without the ultimate is still pretty powerful though on the threat of the engage as well. This is what happens for tanks against the bannered minion.
And that's why we don't watch that lane anymore.
Again, not the tip of the iceberg. That's all about patch 8.4. But
yeah,
you know these guys have been practicing on patch 8.4 for quite a while now. It's been a long delay to get 8.4 onto the tournament realm and onto the games. But they definitely know what's good for the future.
A slow push now coming in from SKT, but they've lost Baron, so they're taking it a lot slower this time around. Pushing as 5 in the mid lane here. Once again, Static Shift finished up on Teddy, so they have a nice bit of wave clear just on the one pick.
Very difficult for Bang to walk up while his flash is down, so SKT are going to be a bit half-hearted when it comes to this siege. If they see the whole of Jin Air, go for the ultra respect, maybe you'll get a couple of autos, but short of Faker getting a pick, they're going to have a bit of kind of fake aggression. They're just going to corral the members of Jin Air into their base, and then when the respawn comes on Baron, that's when we expect SKT to be aggressive and decisive around the second Baron take.
Got about 2 minutes until that time, so we'll see how they use those 2 minutes, probably just to get some vision in there. Zoe, Faker, he's having a pretty fun game so far. No deaths, sitting on 1-0-3. Has picked up now a death cap on his side, and only now is Jin Air really beginning to stack a bit of that MR that they will desperately need if they don't want to get one shot here.
Predictably, Teddy is the highest CS numbers in the game. And for the hook of agility to join the BF sword on his way towards a Infinity Edge, and also will go for a QSS. The back timing is perfect, but I agree. Faker is getting to the oppressive territory, and the non-magic mantle is largely just to not take any true damage from Faker. Went for double magic pen this game. This is the calm before the storm. Feels like Baron spawning is when this game will really tick into high gear. SKT in a huge position of power. Very difficult for them to lose a team fight. You never want to count out Xayah Rakan, but Xayah being behind in items. Infinity Edge complete. There's probably a fight they win. Right now, doesn't seem like there is in SKT. Just looking for the pick to make the Baron the safest possible.
There is zero vision around the red side jungle or the Baron, so Jin Air really have no idea right now. They just know that this ward is being denied with a very deep control ward from SKT. And
the problem you have for Jin Air is who is the best case scenario person waiting in a brush? Is it Zac? Is it Leona? Is it Varus? All of them can pick you. So it's very difficult for them to face check. Omti has the Warmogs finally, so at least he can think about it, but he's not that tanky, as he'll find out.
It's really just the Faker show here, as Bang not wanting to get too close. Seeing what damage he can pull off. Got the red buff spawning here, going to be stolen away.
Pulling out a little bit, SKT want to ensure that there is no free minion CS coming through from Teddy. Right now, they can only play one lane. Can Jin Air's Wraith's going to walk up. That's a bad idea.
Well, they wanted to get some vision, but it's going to bait some members in. So on, forced to burn his flash, and a half-hearted Sejuani ultimate coming in, as well as Ornn. Well, the Forge God hitting everybody, but not doing much else. So they lose a couple of big ultimates, and they still have to back off.
They all pressed their buttons there. It was a little bit questionable. I agree with you, Valdez. And the re-engage is still possible. A lot of critical ults available. No Solar Flare makes Teddy happy. But was a bit of a strange one. Execution left a lot to be desired. Bang missed his ult. Then we saw the Ornn ultimate largely just to zone away or move SKT back. Jin Air are desperate to find a second lane to farm. The only one that right now is showing up is bot lane, and only Ornn can go there. So that's their problem, is that Justice and Teddy can't farm together right now. Only one of them is farming every minion wave, and that's a big problem for Jin Air. Get a foothold back into the game. SKT know there's never been any vision around the Baron, so They're going to start up the Baron. It's definitely not going to be fast.
That it will not. There's only 2 members getting onto it now, but they've brought it down to half HP.
Yeah, smart.
Jin Air, they're going to have to get close. Empty looking for the flash here potentially, but he's not going to go for it. Will just give that one away. Did not want to go for the chance. And so the Baron, second one of the game, goes over to SKT.
By the time they had enough confirmation, it was too far down. Smartly executed by SKT, and just a realization that with how corralled they had Jin Air in their own base, there was never going to be any vision in that pick. And it didn't matter. So they take him down, looking at the damage numbers. Been a bit more feeling like a 15,000 damage game by the Zoe, so she tops the charts in this game. Ornn somehow has just done 10,000 damage to Sion and really no one else in this particular game. See what the shop did bring Teddy. He got, okay, Infinity Edge and QSS, a lot of power was just loaded in. My read on Jin Air is when you don't see the Smite steal, their thought instead is we need to recreate the attempt to pick on Bang and get Bang's flash down, then maybe we can just wave clear in the face of the Varus. So I could see even more aggression to try to force Bang onto the back foot. He has QSS and Summoners himself. But Teddy's getting items, and that's the only good news here for the side of Jin Air.
That's a very big cannon minion. It's been fully buffed up by Banner Command and the Baron. The Bannon, if you will. Does get taken out.
Trying to turn to mid lane after they saw multiple people wave clearing and bot. Blossom goes for a bit of a party leap.
Wants to grab that magic shield. Now that's Teddy in the back line, but MT smartly standing in the front. Gonna delay a nice bit of time actually for Bang to just move forward with the Baron and get that there.
Slow and steady for the side of SKT. Still a minute 40, so 3 minion waves or so on this Baron buff. They're going to target down at least 1 turret. Looks like Blossom's going to look for a charge into mid. Sixing shot's not taken. Okay, they do not commit for it just yet.
And slow and steady, as you mentioned. They don't want to take any chances. The engage at a Wraith is totally going to miss. They take him out immediately. That's going to be a double stun in the back line with the Solar Flare. And a kidnapped So1 now. Looking for their second kill. Faker looking for more onto Teddy here. Can't quite get it just yet. Is going to Zonia's up here looking for some help. But Teddy does get the kill. Here comes Jintara. Decides to cut it short as... They felt like they were taking it slow, but then after the 1 kill, they're like, okay, let's just go for it. And it might just be enough as they take out the inhibitor.
If Faker got too frisky there, did not need to go for that pick. Thought if they killed Teddy, it would end the game. Instead, the game doesn't end. The inhibitor will go down, but just a single inhibitor going down for second Baron buff isn't a disaster for the side of Jin Air. They want to delay a second turret. That will be the rich reward SKT's looking for, but they're not willing to commit.
So they stay alive. Only 1 lane has been broken so far. You guys will notice we do have the inhibitor timings on the right side, just above the mini-map there for our red side team.
We're going to get the replay of this particular passage. Blossom did not take his elastic slingshot, so isn't there to roam. Wraith, you mentioned it already. He misses on the engage. Bang this time isn't going to walk up. Gets taken down in the front line. But it ends up being a nice second kill. It'll be the stopwatch purchase there for OMT, working towards his Goggo's stone plate. Faker, you know, he walks up, and if there's no Infinity Edge, this is probably the right play. The Blade Caller on the backside takes him down. Very nice timing coming through from Teddy. The items continue to pile up. It's only 3.5 for Teddy. That's the early game, as we know. Not a full fountain laser just yet, but the baby laser is going to be pretty powerful just the same.
I mean, you can tell that Teddy is trying his hardest to carry his team on his back, but when you're down 15,000 gold at 36 minutes, it's a hard task, Papa.
And do note that what did we say earlier when we saw them corralled into mid lane before the mid lane inhibitor went down? You can't have Malzahar and Xayah farming at the same time. They only control access to 1 minion wave. Malzahar is pretty desperately far behind his opponents. Overall, the laners between them have lost CS. Sion is also 60 ahead. Jin Air have lost a lot of minions to just turrets because they haven't been able to play all the lanes. That makes the goalie massive, and that paddle start massive as well.
MT just a little bit far forward, eats way too much harass, and Xayah, Teddy going down to bottom lane to clear the wave of the banner minions means that this push comes in the top lane, and there's not much that Jin Air can do to stop it. This lead is just overflowing now for SKT as they take out a second lane of an inhibitor.
And those who want to see the world burn want to see 3 inhibitors inhibitors and some Nexus turrets go down, and then Jin Air start the big comeback. It could still happen, seeming unlikely, but every time Xayah adds an item, it's possible.
Looking for an opportunity here, not really going to come in. TP is going to be canceled as Faker and looks like Blossom make their way out of that one.
The hype is not gone. The Xayah is epically farmed. No one is fed on the side of Jin Air. They can't be. Not enough kills on the board to make it so. But still, we are unsure of where this game will end. OMT walks up again. They do not want to let 3 inhibitors go down. How many options will they have? Minions start to push in mid lane, are still far behind on bot lane, and Sejuani already out of the fight.
Well, we've seen this story before with a Zoe that's massively far ahead. Even without the Baron infused minions, you can just sit here, let the waves push, and the never-ending, it feels like, siege out of the side of the Zoe team is really hard to deal with, very oppressive. And they're going to go for a redemption coming down from Zoe. They're going to take out the last
Malzahar.
and they get onto Justice in the back line. They take him out, and down goes the Rakan as well. Another person in the front looks like OMT is going to be taken out as SKT. They make this one short and sweet as they go for the victory. Triple kill now over to the side of Bang. They won Teddy. Looks like they can't quite get it just yet. But here we go. Flash forward for Bang, and the Quadra comes in. At least we got the Quadra, no Penta, but it's going to be good anyway for SKT as they take the victory here, 2-1 over Jin Air.
And unfortunately, Jin Air's poor decisions in the early to mid game meant they fell back on Teddy, hard carry or loss, and Valdez. More often than not in the LCK, you cannot put all your eggs in one basket. Does not work for the side of Jin Air. They end 3-3 in terms of game score against SKT. They do not find a match win, and with that match win, SKT moved to 6-6. They move to 50% when it comes to match score, and they keep right up there in the competition for the top 5.
Well, you can see what you want about Blossom in Game 2, but Game 3, he looked pretty clean. Didn't make too many mistakes, and that's the hope, right? This rookie jungler that has so much promise. If you can just be a little bit more consistent, then, I mean, he's already got so many fans now. We'll see what happens in the future for this guy.
Definitely, and with Blossom, fans will go back and say, well, if they just drafted Game 2, the Zaka to the Jax, they would have won, and that might be true, right? We don't know. But that's a very hindsight thing to say after the series when you win 2-1 that, okay, Jax was the problem, we're going to be fine, Blossom is still our savior. Blossom will still win and lose some games. That's the reality of Blossom. But what he does for the rest of his team means he's a necessary cog for SKT moving forward. But Jin Air GreenWings, just too many mistakes when they were behind. It was a very similar draft from both sides, both teams opting heavy into team fights. The snowball is so hard to stop, to arrest. Snowball continued, and this time Teddy didn't have a robust front line to play around. Justice gets completely chained to death.
He walked into it.
He did. Can't respect everything. That time, he made the big mistake. Justice in the lineup does not win them a second series against SK Telecom T1. But he does end 3-2, so he still has a winning record against SKT, but not an undefeated one.
Yeah, very true. So it's good for SKT. They go to 6-6, and they keep their playoff hopes very much a possibility here.
For Jin Air, though, they end up 4-8, somehow the same match score as BBQ Oliver's, and already it's feeling like top 5 will require 8 wins at the least, probably 9 wins, Valdez, and they've only got 6 matches to play, so while they're not mathematically eliminated, Jin Air GreenWings a very rank outsider to make top 5.
So take a look at the damage here. Certainly Faker's Zoe getting ahead early. Stayed ahead the entire time. Most damage in the game. I'll be curious to see if we hear from him, if he gets that last MVP. I actually forgot who got the MVP in Game 1. Maybe Blossom?
No.
No?
Wasn't Blossom. I do forget, now that you mention it.
Maybe, no, it was Bang. It was Bang.
Yes, yeah. Okay. And Jin Air didn't get a perfect game, at least. They were able to pick up the single kill to stave off the perfect game, but otherwise, nothing good reading there for Jin Air GreenWings. They should understand their mistakes here. They'd be pretty clear to see. I think the VOD review will be fruitful for both teams, but that's the kind of point we made about Jin Air in Week 1, Week 2, Week 3. Now we're far enough into the season. The VOD review is probably too late. Only 3 weeks to go. Jin Air GreenWings, they're probably safe from relegations, but MVP is at 3 match wins, and now it feels like the difference between 7th and 9th is pretty small.
That it is. It seems like we have groups, right? 1 through 3 is close. Then we got 4 through 6 pretty close, and then 7 through 9, and then
Kongdu
Kongdu at
Monster.
the bottom.
Yeah.
Well, there's always got to be a last place team. This time, once again, it will be Kongdu. Most likely. It's not over yet, but it's certainly looking that way.
I think they closed the betting markets on that one, sadly, Valdez. I think Kongdu Monster are very unlikely to pick up more than one more match win in the season. Even that is looking unlikely on their current 8-match losing streak. SK Telecom T1, 4-match wins into a match loss, but back to 2-match wins again. Clearly this team has something about it. Clearly this team feels like top 5, but the race is still very close.
So the MVP this time is going to go over to Blossom. Says, I showed you some play without any mistakes up at the top, and certainly he did. No deaths in this time, looked a lot cleaner than game 2. Certainly redeemed himself after that game.
And I'd love to be there on the interview just to ask him, obviously my Korean's not there, but just to ask him about what it's like to come back from the mistakes, what advice he's getting from Coma. These are questions we need to know because we saw the reassuring of him after the ZAG pick was locked in. Coma was right there with the back rub, with the confidence boosting. He was able to play his natural game in this game, and he made the right decision more often than not, so credit to him.
So guys, we're gonna head over to the MVP interview here. I'll hand you over to Ji-sun to help translate. We'll see you in a bit.
오늘 경기에 승리를 이끈 뱅 선수 그리고 블라썸 선수의 인터뷰가 준비되어 있습니다. 함께 만나보시죠.
Blossom from SK Telecom.
자, 그래서 오늘 준비된 첫 번째 경기가 마감이 됐습니다. SK
So this is the end of the first game for today. SK Telecom taking down Jin Air in 2-1 score. Let's hear from the MVPs. Congratulations.
지금 쓰는 게 아니었는데, 네, 일단은 나중 쓰든 지금 쓰든
Well, he was not supposed to use it right now, but it's all okay.
축하하는 그런 멋진 장면까지였습니다. 오늘 경기 2대1로 승리를 거뒀습니다.
So how do you feel about the win?
쉽지는 않은
It
경기였거든요.
wasn't an easy game.
저희가 아무래도 1라운드 때 패배를 했던
We did lose out against Jin Air in the first round robin,
오늘 패배를 하면 정말
and
안 좋게 될수
we
있기
knew that we were
때문에
gonna in a bad condition if we lose out today. So I was really nervous before the games.
긴장을 했는데 오죽했으면 싶을까 하기도
So
하고
I was also worried about our rookies because even I was this much worried. I was sure that Blossom would have been even more worried than me.
그런 모습이 있었거든요. 역시 그 선후배 간에 끈끈함이 좀 있구나라는 느낌을 많이 받았는데.
So I guess you care about the rookies a lot.
그 MVP를 받으면서 멋진 마무리가 됐지만 오늘 약간
So you did get MVP, but
어땠어요?
today's game wasn't easy.
제가 되게 떨고
I was really shaking,
아쉬운 부분이 엄청 많이
and
보였는데
I am kind of disappointed by my
너무
plays.
좀 위로해주고 괜찮다고
But our other players tried to cheer me up. Our coaching staff told me it'll be all okay. So I think that's how I won the next game.
감독님이 얘기를 좀 길게 하던데 그게 그 내용이었어요 그러면?
Then what kind of feedback did Coach Goma give you?
계속 그 얘기밖에 안 하고
He told me to not to be nervous going into the games.
거의 큰 변화가 표정 변화가 없는 선수 중에 한 명인데 좀 더우셨나 봐요. 약간
Also, Bang, you seemed a little bit exhausted after the second game.
일단은 좀 진짜 이제 저희가 패배를 하면은 정말 큰일 날 수 있는 상황이기 때문에
I was just so worried about losing out today, so I thought it was a big problem when we lost the second set.
약간 긴장을 하게 된 것 같아요.
And it made me feel a bit nervous, so I try to stay focused for the third game.
이겨야 된다고 하셨고
And also Goma told us that we must win the third one, so yeah, I was quite nervous.
긴장하는 모습을 잘 보여줄 적이 없기 때문에 우리가 그 긴장감 더 푸시면서 하라고 뱅 선수가
So,
평소에 좋아하는
We brought you Bang a special present.
콜라를 준비를 했습니다.
We heard that you prefer this Coke in a blue can over the red one, so this is our present.
네, 상관없어요. 네, 상관없어요. 어차피 오늘 먹으면서 하니까 이것저것 하면서 서로 이제 드시면서. 자, 이번에는 1경기 주요 장면들 굉장히 많은 장면들이
Now
많이
let's check out
있었습니다.
some
이번에 뱅
highlights
선수를
from
만든
the
시기를
first
한번
game.
지난번에 우리가 약간 애매하게 잡았거든요. 이번에는 어떨지 1세트 주요 장면 한번 만나볼까요? 드래곤 어패스의 한타였거든요.
So it was team fight at the Dragon.
좀 설명 해주실까요?
이 장면 같은 경우는
Well, at this moment,
너무 팀원들이 잘 들어가서
our teammates went in so well, so I was just able to put damage comfortably.
자, 그리고 나서 다시 한번 이제 미드 방향인데 여기서는 부패 사슬이었군요. 상당히 좋았고요.
Well, at this moment, your ultimate was really important, right?
잡을 수 있을지 없을지에 대한 판단을 그냥 빨리
Well,
해서 그냥
I needed to make a decision really quick, so I think that helped us to get the kill.
그 경기도 그랬습니다만 맨 마지막에 사실 거의 끝낸다고 느낌이 있었을 때 또 아슬아슬하게 갑자기 뭐 이상하게 정리가
Well,
되면서
actually, and Jin Air Ace,
우리가 지금 사실
you
지난
guys,
경기가 거의 이제
when you
뭐
were
경기장
rushing to the
34 경기
Nexus,
있었거든요. 그래서
네.
그 경기가 또 나오나라는 생각이 들 만한
weren't you really
위험한
worried
순간이 있었고,
about
그때는
replicating
내부에서
the
무슨
game that you did with Jin Air in the first round?
그 상황 자체가 라이즈가 물렸었는데 그 봐달라는 콜이 있었는데
So our Rise was caught out.
넥서스를 치거나 타워를 쳤으면 끝낼 수 있었는데
I think we should have just go for the Nexus rather than protecting him, but we made wrong decisions.
상대 팀원들한테 좀 근접해서 오리아나 공을 맞은 게
So yeah, I got hit by the Oriana's ult. So,
더 쳤으면 끝낼 수 있었는데
but if I didn't and I just took the Nexus, I think we could have won it earlier. So I think that was kind of my mistake.
그 라이즈가 궁 쓴 장면 말씀하신
네네.
And the backdoor with the Rise ult,
끝낼 수 있나
I wasn't really sure if we could take the Nexus down. But Untara and Faker told us that it is possible, so we just went all in for the Nexus. I think it was lucky for us.
블라썸은 어땠어요? 그렇게 어떻게 보면은 팀원들의 그 판단들이 있었을 때 선배들의 그
What about
의견들이
you,
뭐
Blossom?
주고받아지는 그런 순간들이 있잖아요. 그때 뭐 어떻게 하고 들었어요? 본인도 의견을 내고 막 그랬어요? 그
How
일경
did
때?
you think in that moment?
저도 상대 말 따라서 잘 된 것 같고요.
I just listened to what my players tell me to do.
계속 싸우자밖에 안 해서
Well, my shot calls are mainly about let's fight, let's open team fight. So
열심히 노력하고
I just try to listen to other players in our team till I become a better player to make shot calls.
오더에 대한 욕심도 살짝 날만한 어떻게 보면 위로 가는 길에 대해서는 당연히 욕심이 날만하니까 오늘 경기 이 경기 끝나고 나서 사실상 걱정들을 많이 했었을 것 같아요. T1 팬 여러분들도. 그러니까 이 경기에 좀 어려운 장면들이 있었는데
So you did have hard time in the second
지금
set.
3세트 펼쳐진 다음에는 마치 2세트가 없었던 것처럼
But the
자크
third
운영이
one,
좋았거든요.
you guys were making a
거의
great
나머지
counterplay.
선택이 비슷한 상황에서 자크를 다시 한번 선택했잖아요. 그때는 팀 내에서 어떤 내용들이
What
있었어요?
kind of feedbacks did your coach give when you picked Zach as a jungler?
하나가 뭐였지? 하나가 더 있었는데
네.
제가 계속 형들이랑 감독님들이
There were two junglers available for me to pick,
너가 자신 있는 거 하라고 네가
and our coaching staff told me to pick whatever I am confident with. So I said I'm gonna go with Zach.
그래서 자크는 이제 3승 무패를 이번에 딱 만들어냈거든요. 마지막 세트
So you
본인이
never
느끼기에
lost the
너무
game
좋은
on
장면
your
만들었어
Zac.
하고 느낀 장면이 있다면 뭐가 있을까요?
Is there any highlights that you wanna pick?
그냥 제가 딱히 잘했다는 장면은 없는 것 같고요.
I don't think I didn't make any
아니에요.
highlights,
잘한 장면이 있었어요. 바로 이 장면이죠.
but let's check out if I had.
볼까요? 일단 이 장면에서 자크가 한성 주먹으로 일단 만들어낸 장면도 있었고 주요 이렇게 파고드는
I think you
장면들에
made
대해서
great
굉장히
engagement
좋은
on your
평가를
Zac.
받았거든요. 안 만족스러워요?
Aren't you satisfied?
제가 생각하기는 한 80% 정도만 생각하고요.
I am 80% satisfied with my play. So
다음에 20% 채우면
yeah, I'm
되죠.
gonna make more improvements on it.
했는데도 이 정도 장면이었으면 나머지 20% 채우면 굉장히 좋을 수 있을 거니까. 자 이렇게 해서 1경기 이제 3경기를 얻어내면서 경기를 마무리 졌는데 지난번 경기 물론 그 불의의 경우는 당연히 했었습니다만 언급하신 것처럼 그 1라운드
As you guys said,
진입한 이후부터는
starting from the second round robin, I think SK Telecom is back in a different rhythm. And here there are a lot of fans out here to support you.
저희가 그래도 조금씩 나아지면서
I
결국에는
think we're
마지막에는
slowly
좀더
making improvements.
좋아진
So
모습으로
in the end, I hope we're
팀들이랑 좀
in a
생각으로
higher
겨룰 수
ranks
있도록
and we can become a stronger
그때까지
team.
좀 노력을 많이 할 테니까
So
어떻게든
we're gonna try to do our best to practice,
플레이오프만 진출하면
and we're gonna just do our best to make it to the playoffs. And I'm gonna promise to show better performance in the playoffs.
그만큼 플레이오프 올라갔을 때 T1은 또 다른 힘이 있으니까. 그리고 블라썸 선수 같은 경우도
And
일단
Blossom,
질문이 두 개예요. 첫 번째
we have two
질문은
questions for
시청자
you.
질문인데요.
One is from your fans.
뭔가 좀 에너지를 받았는지 에너지가 굉장히
You
좋아졌다.
and Faker looked a bit awkward last time when you guys shared hugs. So did you become a little bit more closer with him than last time?
제가 워낙 막 형들 좋아하고 해서 원래부터 사이는 좋았고요.
Well, we weren't really that awkward, but after the hug,
불러보니까 형이 속소를 짓고 계시더라고요.
I saw Faker having bad smile on his face.
그래서 다음에는
So maybe next time.
다음에는 아무 말 없이 좋은 표정으로 가서
Next
뜨겁게
time,
안아주겠다 뭐 이런
I
얘기겠죠?
hope he shows better
사실
smile on
저도
his
조커랑
face,
되게
right?
좋은데 갑자기 달려들면 놀랄 때가 있거든요. 약간 놀란 표정 지은 것 같아요.
Yeah, maybe Faker was a little bit surprised at that moment.
서서 이제 T1의 멤버로서 확실히 자리매김하는 모습들이 있잖아요.
So it seems like you are really becoming a part of SK Telecom squad. Is there any last words for the split?
아직 경기력이 그렇게 예전에 T1처럼
Where our performance is not as clean and perfect as the former SK Telecom, but I believe that if I improve myself, we can become like the former SK Telecom. So yeah, I'm gonna promise to practice and prepare for our upcoming matches.
목타죠?
You seem really nervous, so
요 콜라를 드시면서
take a sip of Coke
꼭 다음부터 연결하면 돼요.
and let's add on to that.
꼭 다음에는 좋은 경기력으로 저도 잘 졌다는 소리 듣도록
So
노력하겠습니다.
I'm gonna promise that we're gonna come back with better performance on the next series.
좋은 경기를 펼치고 나서 멋진 인터뷰까지 두 선수 이야기
It was
들어봤습니다.
a very interesting interview from SK Telecom, Bang, and Blossom. Thank you for listening, and I will send it back to our casters. Thank you.
선수 다시 한번 고맙습니다. 축하드립니다.
So a relatively tame interview there.
By Sport TV standards, certainly.
Generally, they like to do more crazy stuff, but I guess they were a little bit nervous, so they decided to take it down a little notch. And we're going to take a look at some highlights from this game. It was pretty straightforward. SKT just destroyed them.
Yeah, just like the straightforward interview, it feels like this was a pretty tame game when it comes to the high-octane Game 3s against Jin Air. Certainly no 94-minute bonanza of action, just ended up with Jin Air overextending the early game, making too many mistakes. The Sejuani's not your champion, mate. You need to find something else.
Yeah.
The Kazakhs, for example. But just too aggressive in the early game while they were scaling. The scaling never registered, and that being a straightforward win for SK Telecom T1.
Spreading there at the end, not allowing Wraith to get that last engage was pretty fantastic to watch. As, I mean, this is basically just what happens when you're this far ahead. SKT, at least, they pull back. They look a lot stronger compared to their first series against Jin Air, which is a good sign, as they certainly need some more wins to secure a playoff place here.
This feels like the dream matches are already there for playoffs. It does feel like SK Telecom will have to run the gauntlet. It seems unlikely they will catch top 3 with how many wins behind they are of Afrika KT. And things are not out of the realm of possibility, but unlikely. SKT ran the gauntlet all the way to the final in summer. That time they couldn't pick up the victory. And still in the future, right now, we do see the SKT victory and how it affects the standings. SK Telecom T1, they are in 6th, but rescuing their game score, their -10 game score has been rescued. They are at 0 as we move into game number 6. And KSV, they're the big question mark, Valdez. We're going to see them play after the break.
Yeah.
KSV have been on about as poor a run of form as you could ever expect for a world champion team. They're against MVP, and you think, oh, this is their time. I'm not sure if it's as straightforward as that. KSV fans will hope this is a straightforward 2-0. Otherwise, KSV might even miss the playoffs.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but, you know, they lose to Rocks, SKT, KT, and Afrika Freaks. In the last 5 games that they've played, they have those 4 losses. So certainly up against the stronger teams, they struggle. The question is, how will they do against MVP in this last one? I was kind of jokingly predicting MVP to win with the Korean casters, but, you know,
Jokingly?
You never know, because I think they can at least take 1 win, Papa.
It's possible, guys. It'll be about a 20-minute break. We are after 8 p.m., so need some time to load in for the players. Fun Series 1, Series 2, last on 8.3. The track is knife, I think, in the past almost.
Yeah, so guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys once again in 20 years, so be right back.
This is the day. I find a better way. I'm gonna keep on running, and I'm not gonna stop.
네, 오늘의 첫 번째 대결 SK텔레콤 T1과 진에어 그린윙스의 경기는 SK텔레콤 T1의 승리로 끝이 났습니다. 순위 반등을 노렸었던 진에어 그린윙스의 입장에서는 아무래도 아쉬움이 많이 남는 경기가 아니었을까라는 생각이 드는데요. 오늘 경기에서 보여줬던 그들의 승부사다운 기질이 남아있는 한 앞으로의 경기에도 계속된 기대가 필요할 것 같습니다. 저는 20분 후 KSV MVP의 경기로 다시 인사드리겠습니다.